Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for your patience, y'all. Making sure that um, we can keep our technical difficulties to a minimum, and naming that we have some folks in the Atlanta area that are experiencing some extreme weather. And so also naming that in the case that we are unable to provide captions and provide um, interpretation in terms of ASL, and also with our certified deaf interpreter, then we will need to shift to rescheduling because accessibility is a high priority for us.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And thank you, everyone who was patient and waited in the waiting room. We're so glad to be able to host this tonight. Before we get started, we wanted to do a little housekeeping and just go through some accessibility information to help you with the webinar. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Mel Moore, and I am the Associate Director of New Disabled South Rising. Welcome to the first lecture in our Disability Unbound lecture series. I use they and them pronouns. And a short visual description is that I am a white, genderqueer, trans person with short, curly brown hair. I'm coming to you live from my home office. In the chat, you will find a link to Streamlink for our live captions. So you can view the cart captions by selecting the show captions icon on the bottom controls, or just access them from the Streamlink text in the chat. The chat will be enabled today, but please do not use it for questions and answers. The Q&A will be open and can be found by selecting the Q&A button on the bottom controls and submitting questions and comments there. Before we get started, I would like to introduce our Access Usher, Sonia Rio-Glick, who serves as the Policy Associate at New Disabled South Rising. Sonia will share how you can get support with any accessibility needs that may come up during the webinar.
Thanks so much, Mel, for that introduction. A brief visual description of myself is I am a white woman in my late 20s with very long dark brown hair, sitting in an office with white walls. I'm in an office chair that you may be able to see the back of. And so as Access Usher, I'm here to support you in getting your access needs met throughout the event. You are encouraged to be here in whatever ways you are most comfortable. We just ask that you stay on mute when not speaking. I will periodically put Leah's script in the chat so you can follow along as you'd like, as well as the link to live captioning that Mel mentioned. If you have access needs during the event and the chat is accessible to you, please send me a direct message in the chat. If the chat is not accessible to you, feel free to email me directly at sonya@newdisabledsouth.org. That's SONYA@newdisabledsouth.org. Please use the Q&A box for your questions for Leah, as Mel mentioned, not the chat, and they will be addressed at the end. Transparently, there may be some needs I'm unable to meet, but myself and others at New Disabled South will do our best. Thank you for your trust and understanding.
Okay, and thank you as we navigate the technical difficulties. If anyone is having issues with accessing interpretation support, please let us know and we'll address it. Now I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, E.K. Hoffman, to talk about this webinar series.
Awesome. Are you able to? Yep, there we go. Thank you so much, Mel, for that. I am really excited to have y'all here. Hello and welcome to New Disabled South and New Disabled South Rising's first lecture in this year's Disability Unbound lecture series. My name is E.K. Hoffman. A brief visual description. I'm a white person with short curly brown and green hair and glasses, and I'm seated in my home office. New Disabled South and our C4 arm, New Disabled South Rising, are both regional disability justice organizations serving the 14 states of the US South. We work to transform how people think about disability. Disabled people deserve to thrive in community and with dignity, with no one left behind. We achieve policy and narrative change through cross-movement organizing, disability advocacy, accessible education, and original research. We hold accountable ableist actors in government, business, media, politics, and everywhere to ensure we achieve transformative change for disabled people in our lifetimes. I'm
If I
pausing.
could just stop you for one moment.
Yeah,
It seems
say that I am realizing that we have lost our ASL interpreter.
Okay.
I see we have on now. We just needed to switch. Is that correct? Okay.
I think the weather got us on that one.
Yeah, the weather got us on that one. Okay. Thank y'all so much for your patience. Weather is scary. So in naming that this series, co-hosted by New Disabled South and New Disabled South Rising, Disability Unbound is a powerful and thought-provoking free offering of virtual lecture series dedicated to exploring critical topics in disability justice, with a particular focus on the unique experiences and challenges faced by disabled communities in the South. And through a blend of expert speakers and thought leaders, we'll delve into important subjects, including today's topic, mapping our care webs, strategies for imperfect survival. Now I'll pass it back to Mel, our Associate Director of New Disabled South Rising, to introduce our incredible lecturer.
Oh, thank you so much. And hang on one second. Let me bring on our interpreter. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed lecturer. So Leah Lakshmi Piepzna-Samarasinha, they, them pronouns, is a non-binary femme-disabled writer and disability and transformative justice movement worker of Burgher and Tamil, Sri Lankan, Irish, and Galician Roma descent. They are the author or co-editor of 10 books, including The Future is Disabled, Prophecies, Love Notes, and Morning Songs, Beyond Survival, Stories and Strategies from the Transformative Justice Movement, Tongue Breaker, and Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice. A Disability Justice Futures Fellow, Lambda and Jean Cordova Award winner, 5-time Publishing Triangle shortlister, and longtime disabled cutie BIPOC space maker. They are currently building Living Altars, a cultural space by and for disabled cutie BIPOC writers. And it is my pleasure to pass it over to Leah.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here. Before we go any further, Sonia, I just posted the link to the access copy of my talk to you. I can't message everybody, unfortunately, in this format. Would you repost it, please? Awesome. We're moving on crypt time and climate chaos, extreme weather time. So I'm going to make a lot of pauses because I want to make sure that we can all show up for this lecture on Care Webs. I'm really grateful to be here. To describe myself, I'm a 50-year-old Sri Lankan and white non-binary femme person, and I'm wearing a t-shirt that says sorry for having great tits and correct opinions. I grew up and live right now in the Rust Belt in the Northeast of the United States, but I'm actually zooming into you today from Central North Carolina, where I'm visiting chosen family. And I'm so excited to be here, and I'm hoping that I can share some stuff that might be helpful. The structure of the time we have together is I'm going to talk some and share some stories. And then I'm actually going to offer you some questions to journal about and reflect on about your relationship to care and what you're already doing with care and how you want to do it going forward. And then we're going to have some question and answers. The topic of this lecture is care webs. What are they and how the hell do we try and do them? And some other things I should mention about myself are that I'm someone who's been disabled and chronically ill for most of my life, and I'm also autistic and neurodivergent. And I also come from a multi-generational disabled family. My mom survived polio and lived as a post-polio person who also had cancer and a ton of other chronic illnesses in a working class central Massachusetts town. And my dad is neurodivergent and lived with complex PTSD. So I've been figuring out and thinking about needing care and giving care and organizing care with other people for most of my life. Um, from when I was a kid and I was a caregiver to my parents, like many of us here, to when I first got really, really sick with ME/ chronic fatigue, plus intense mental health crisis when I was 21. And like many people, was almost totally isolated and alone and without support from either the state or friends, and trying to figure out how to eat, clean up after myself, go to the bathroom, and survive with negative 200 spoons a day. And what I want to say is, this shit is hard, and I am not going to offer you a 1, 2, 3, this is how you do it. Great, everyone's care needs are met. But I'm going to share some experiences and tools because I really believe in the power of our imperfect disabled stories. And I wanted to start by saying, when I think about care, all of these things are true at once. Care is not simple. Care is complicated and fraught. Many of us have been subject to abuse when receiving care or giving care. Care is not safe. Care is often a site of violence. Even when care isn't violent, it can be annoying and uncomfortable to receive. Care can also be a place of beauty and pleasure and liberation. Care is not always fun or joyful. Sometimes you just have to take the garbage out. Care is a place where the state and the medical system try and control us. Care is often in a place of deep scarcity and holds deep pain and trauma for folks. Care is still something disabled people and our loved ones have innovated and made places of beauty inside. And even when we show up deeply imperfect, the ways that we show up matters. Okay, so that's the soliloquy, and I'm seeing in chat all of the above. Yes. Okay, I want you to cross your fingers. I'm going to try and do the magic of screen share, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to say fuck it, and sorry, I cuss. And we're just going to read it out loud, but bear with me because I made this goddamn PowerPoint and I want it to work. Cross your fingers, toes, or whatever you got, including mentally. Here we go. Praying to the tech gods. Thank you. Okay, share. There we go. Okay, can I get a cue if people can see the interpreter and me and the slideshow? And I'm going to check for chat. I'm seeing thumbs up.
Interpreter, no. Your slides, yes.
You know what? Then screw the slides. I'm just going to read it out loud. That's fine. Great. Can everyone see the
Would
interpreter?
you like,
No, thank you. I want to keep it simple. We've had so much tech. I want to just make sure. Let's see. Yeah, and I can post a link to the presentation. That's a beautiful thing. Sonia, would you go ahead? Or I'm sorry, Sophie, I'm having brain fart. Access Usher person, could you please post the slide link, please? Sonia, it is
Yeah,
Sonia.
I'm on it right now.
Awesome, thank you. And for people who already saw the link to the access notes, like the script, it's really similar, and everything in the slide deck is also in the access copy. Okay, sweet. So I'm just gonna say, so what are care webs? So to begin my brief, what is the hell is a care web definition is any network, organized or really freaking informal, where someone who has care needs attempts to get them met. And this could be from friends, partners, acquaintances, neighbors, family members, total strangers, mutual aid groups, churches, mosques, synagogues, texting a signal thread or posting on a Facebook group. Or it could be from paid personal care attendants, social services, or organizations. It could be from both. It can be in person, it can be online, it can be virtual. Um, and I'll just pause there. It's a big, big ecosystem of all of the brilliant ways we access care in this world. And I'll briefly say if that's what a care web need is, back up. What is care? What is a care need or an access need? Care or access need is an idea created by disabled community that means those are the needs we have to be able to live, move, be in the world, be in a space well. It's all of the needs we have, from the ones that are really, we will literally die without them, to the ones that we're told, oh, that's trivial, you don't get to have that. So ableist society often says that as disabled people, we're only allowed the bare minimum, and we should be really grateful for it, right? But what disability justice says is that we deserve choice, control, and pleasure in our lives. We deserve more than insure and a really ugly uniform, okay? And care needs can be things that we need every day on a regular basis. And they can also be things that we need when we are in crisis, when we've got wound care stuff, or when we're surviving surgery or recovering. They could be both, they usually are. And fun fact, everybody has or will have needs. Disabled, non-disabled, temporary able-bodied. And our care needs change over time, right? You already know this, I'm just saying this. So then my next thing is, why do we do this stuff? Why do we do care webs? And it's because we live in an ableist, racist, sexist, homophobic, classist, transphobic system that has never valued disabled lives, and where the care offered from systems is often inadequate or awful, or it just doesn't exist, right? Every single piece of care and access that disabled people are granted from the state, we fought for those things. They didn't just give them to us, we fought for those. And they are always under attack now more than ever, right? For years, we had no legal rights to access care under our own autonomous, we're going to get what we want. We either figured it out on our own or with friends or family. We're told our families had to do everything, or we were told we had to go to an institution to get care. We are still fighting to stay out of institutions. We're fighting inside institutions where we're abused too. We're still fighting in every place we are for autonomy and choice and how we get our needs met. And we know that our needs aren't considered in so many places, including disaster and emergency evacuation, which with more and more climate crisis, is becoming more and more important, because when you're not able to safely evacuate or accessibly evacuated, you're left to die, right? So we make care webs every day because we live inside this broken system we know we can't depend on. And we also know that community isn't perfect or has everything. But even inside all of this loss and chaos, we make things happen, we piece it together, and we're geniuses at figuring it out. Care webs are not perfect. They are not some idealized utopic space in some happy community that's perfect that I've never run into. And I've never run into a care web or been part of a care web where no one's ever pissed off or cranky and everyone always feels great about what's happening. Care webs are imperfect, exhausted, get burnt out, and hit the wall of, I have no idea how the hell we are going to address that. We make judgment calls. We do the best we can. We fail. We're patching the holes left by a totally inadequate system. We don't always get it right or do it perfect, but the everyday ways we show up for each other, even if we can't always do everything, they save lives and they matter. And I'll briefly say, famous last words, that some people may be really new to this terminology or framework, but some people may have heard about this for a while. And I want to name something that's out there where I think with a lot of discussion of community care, collective access, et cetera, sometimes people can go to a place of like, oh, the community's got to do it all. Using any paid services ever or system services is bad. And I want to say, I don't believe that. I believe in whatever works. And I want to say that, period. And because so many of us as disabled folks may not have community, or the community we have may burn out or go away, we may have fights with each other, etc. We
Leah, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I think we may have an access need because there is a hand raised.
thank you.
The person with the hand raised, would you come off mute if you have an access need? Is it Zaline?
Oh, sorry. I don't know why that happened. I don't
That's
have
okay.
access need.
Thank you. That's okay.
Mhm. Cool. Is it okay for me to keep going?
Please do.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So real quick, because I want to get to some nuts and bolts, but it seems like this is resonating with folks. I just want to say, like, this is stuff that we all do every day. Um, if you've ever driven yourself or someone else to the drive-through after a medical appointment, or brainstormed who are the 2 or 3 people who aren't going to freak out about my crisis, who I can text, you've done a care whip, right? Um, and I'm going to read from a quote from my friend Rebel Sydney Black, his essay Pod Mapping for Mutual Aid, which he wrote at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, which are words I go back to, where he says mutual aid can look many different ways. Those of us who are sick and disabled, Black, Indigenous, multiracial, and people of color, poor, working class, immigrants, queer, trans, two-spirit, and more, probably already practice mutual aid and may not even know it. Mutual aid is that random person from the internet bringing you a hot meal when you can't get out of bed. It's cleaning or spiritually cleansing the home of someone who's too severely depressed to do it themselves. It's staying up late talking to that suicidal friend, helping unpack an apartment after someone moves, giving rides to chemo, visiting or writing letters to folks in prison, walking someone's dogs when they can't walk themselves. It can also look like sharing coping skills, survival skills, job search skills, sharing medicine, making medicine, sifting through doctors to find a good fit. It can also be fighting to change the cause of oppression so everyone can be more free. So, fire. And I'm going to briefly share some more why is this shit so hard, um, which impacts us when we try and imagine how to make care webs, right? So, what are some beliefs we've all been taught maybe about care? Okay, some of the ones I come up with is that care is free labor, it's unskilled labor. Women and other oppressed genders and Black and brown folks automatically know how to care, and we're supposed to do it and no one else is supposed to, right? If you need care, you're a burden, weak. You need to take what you can get and be grateful for it. There's that beggars can't be choosers, phrase you might have heard, right? Then there's things like your partner or your family or the state should take care of you, nobody else. Or on the other hand, the community should be enough, you're bad to ask the state for help. Those are just a few. And how many of us have internalized that we're too much, right? Just for existing, right? So many of us, it's easier for us to ask for nothing at all rather than make ourselves vulnerable. Okay, and then you throw some care statistics on top, which is at any time, and it's probably higher now, 30% of the United States is caring for a sick, disabled, or aging friend or family member. Most of the people doing that care are also disabled. Um, Unpaid caregivers work an average of 20 hours a week. Sorry, was that a
Well,
pause?
I was saying pause for a second because I think we lost our captioner, but I see that they're back.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm. Yeah, and Sonia, could I ask again, could you repost, if it's possible, the slides,
Yep.
transcript, and everything?
Yep.
Hmm. Cool. And I think there's a question about people are saying I can only see the hosts and panelists chat, not everybody. Is that how it's supposed to be, or?
Yes, that's unfortunately, I think, a limitation of the webinar
Okay,
format. But as needed, I can read out the chat to like the response to the journal prompts, for example.
okay, cool. And we're moving on crypt time, so we may not be able to collectively share the responses to the journal prompts, but I'm going to speak a little bit more and then give you all a chance to journal and we'll figure it out. Cool. And thanks everyone for checking in. I appreciate it. Okay, so back to my shitty statistics. So people doing care work at work an average of 20 hours a week, for free, giving care to each other, and we pay an average of 5 grand out of pocket for care costs every year. All of these numbers are a lot higher in queer and trans communities because of the ways we're often kicked out of our families of origin. 75% of people giving care are women or non-binary folks. The average caregiver is somebody at midlife who's caring for peers, kids, and adults all at the same time. And the estimated worth of unpaid care labor in the United States as of 2013, which is 10 years ago, 12 years ago, is $470 billion. I just wanted to say this because care is the engine that moves this whole country and world. And we are told it's not real, it's just some little shit on the side. But $470 billion 12 years ago, that's probably, I don't know, $900 billion now. What is money, right? So this stuff is huge. And so much of the time we internalize that when we're struggling to access care or give care or both, it's some individual problem we're struggling with, right? It's huge. So a couple more things with my Scorpio rising about why this is hard. Um, Care is also hard because, again, so many of us have been taught that to be needy is to be weak, to be vulnerable. It's bad. Care means allowing people into the most private places of our bodies and minds, and that's vulnerable. It's scary and it's often unsafe because we know how high the statistics are as disabled people for suffering abuse, right? For many of us, too, care has not been accessible. For many of us, we've been told care's for white people, it's for rich people, it's for somebody else. My mother told me that I couldn't get, educational access as a kid because she was like, that's for white boys. You need to just be really smart and not make trouble, right? So many of us have a version of that story. So when we grow up, or even when we're not, it's difficult to even ask for it or know what our needs are. Many of us are also expected to always give care, but not receive care. Shout out to the caregiving only slash oldest kids in our families, immigrant kids, black and brown kids, everybody. Um, and finally, we know that our communities are beautiful, but we also have scarce resources. And there are so many people I've talked to, there's so many people I've been, where it's you and two friends trying to do a complete care collective for everybody in your city, your town, or area. And you're so tired. You're so tired and you can't pick up the phone anymore. So I want to say all that stuff not to depress everybody, but like, this is what we're rolling around with. This is what we're rolling around with. And the gap between where we are and revolutionary cure futures is really huge when we're facing all that stuff and we're tired as hell, right? And where eggs cost $13 and so forth. Um, so I wanted to start with that. And I also wanted to say, I'll share a couple quick stories and I want to go to journaling. One of the first places that I saw care work happen was my friend Laurie, who's a white working class power chair using femme, originally from Luckett's, Virginia, who, when she was a teenager into her early 20s in Virginia, couldn't find any PCAs in her area who weren't homophobic or who would even show up. So she was like, okay, I'm just gonna have my friends do my transferring, help me feed myself, do the things. And then when she got into college in Canada and moved there, even as a relatively privileged, for sure, white American immigrant, she couldn't access any Canadian healthcare or social services as an immigrant. So she ran a care collective that ran for around 15 years of people who did all of her acts of daily living with her transferring, her toileting, her dressing, the dishes, every day. Um, we did fundraising at the end, but for a long time, it was just people doing it for free. And I ran into that collective when I was still real closeted about my disability. And it was the first time I saw someone being like, oh shit, this shit can be fun. This shit is hard sometimes, but folks are showing up and doing this stuff. We're figuring it out. It blew my mind. And I also have plenty of friends who are like, I don't want to depend on my friends ever to get on the toilet. And that's real. But it gave me a possibility model for like, how creative can we get? And then it stretches all the way out to me being in North Carolina right now to just go sit with my friend during their chemo and know that I can't fix it, but just me being there and making bad jokes is an act of care that's helping their cancer experience be better, right? And in the middle of all that, I've had to unpack so much stuff for myself as a disabled brown mixed class person who has all kinds of stuff about being tough and not asking for help and not being weak and being like, I got it, and having people try and control me when they offer care. And I know I'm not alone in this room. And what I want to say is, I think that all of our individual experiences of all the brilliant ways we've made care and all the ways we've been hurt when trying to access care or give care, they're not liabilities. They're actually grist for the mill for us figuring out this stuff. Okay, so we're still going to end on time because also I value our language justice workers and they got to go home. Also, I know when lightning's going to strike something and this is all going to go to hell. So thank you for listening to me talk for the last minute. I'm going to offer some journal exercises. They are in both the script and the slides, and maybe they could be thrown in chat as well. I'm not sure. But I'm going to ask you, and Sonia, what's up?
Yes, just confirming I can put them in the chat.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to read them out loud too. And you don't have to memorize this. It'll be in chat. It'll be everywhere. But what I say is like, don't feel like you have, well, chat is disabled, so it's kind of a moot point. But I want you to write these on a piece of paper, your notes app, your computer, wherever, so you can keep these answers with you. The questions I wanted to ask you were, and this is really like choose your own adventure, so you don't have to do all of them, but just do whichever one speaks to you. Okay, here we go. The first one is, what were you taught about care growing up? And some examples I threw out there is like, that's for the weak. It's just the Christian/Jewish/Muslim thing to do. We don't need anything. You don't tell the social worker shit. You exist to care give. I mean, these don't have to be your answers, but just think about what were you taught about care growing up? The second question is, what roles have you played around care, right? And I'm altering this a little bit, Sonia, so I'll repeat it. Like, what roles have you played around care? Have you been the giver? Have you been the receiver? Have you been the burnt out bottom liner? Have you been the person who's just like, I'm the rock, I don't need anything? And then finally, how do you want to receive and give care now? What are your needs and boundaries around it? What will you do, won't you do? Okay, I'm famous of what you was I talking about? Oh, Damien, that's a great question. I meant like you, Damien, like, or you, whoever the person is who's here in this webinar. So if I was taking this webinar and not able to copy paste questions, shoot. It looks like, Mara, is it possible for you if you go into the Google Doc, can you copy and paste them? And it looks like, yeah. Oh, let me try. Okay, cool, thanks. And I can just say them again. Basically, it's like, what were you talking about care growing up? How have you been practicing care now, either giving or receiving it? And how do you want to do it going forward? And I say all this, and this is definitely me as someone who is in 12 step, like a mother, but I've had to unlearn a whole lot of stuff about like growing up. It was like I grew up in a working class disabled family where we didn't talk to social workers and where I was my mom's caregiver, and that was my role in my job. And someone would die if I didn't do it. And that's both beautiful, and I've had to learn some stuff around how do I care for all of my disabled community without doing the same stuff that was in my family. You know, like what are my boundaries? Like what do I need to set? What do I need to be able to do it? This might seem really meta, but work with me here because the reason why I'm having you do this is because I've seen so many people being like, great, we're going to do a care web. And then they go 0 to 60 really quick and then they hit the wall or they get so resentful or they stop picking up the phone or they're like, I'm the only one who can do it, right? Burnout is real. We're disabled and we're the only ones who show up is real. All of it's real. But I want us to not hate each other through the process of doing care work. Big dreams. Okay, so we've got around 15 minutes left before Q&A. So what I'm going to invite people to do is take around, and again, it's choose your own adventure. You don't have to answer all these questions. Just pick one if you want to. You can do all of them if you want. But let's take 7 minutes and come back. And then I've got one more journaling exercise that you may take with you to go. And then I'm going to do some Q&A. Does that sound good? Okay, I'm hoping it sounds good. Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for messaging, y'all. Um, and thank you for bearing with us. I'm also going to do this too, so I'm going to go on mute for a second. Thank you, Misha. And it looks like everybody will get the slides, the notes, the resources, and the transcript. And thanks y'all for hanging in with us through the weather and everything else. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. You are really awesome. Appreciate you. I want to answer a question that was posed in the chat. Is it okay to share the links, the script and slide and the recording with private disabled communities like Discords and Signal chats? And we got the go ahead. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, y'all, we're gonna come back and um time is unfortunately wrapping up, so I'm not gonna read everything in chat, but I'm gonna pull out some things that folks shared. Thank you so much. And I want to reiterate, you don't have to share it in chat. My intention was take a minute to journal this for yourself, but I understand some folks might want to share. And I'm seeing like an overarching some themes where a lot of people are saying some version of, yeah, I was taught I didn't deserve care and I was the problem, right? And I'm seeing the word burden come up over and over again. And yeah, I've been there. I still fight that. And I'm seeing people say really beautiful care dreams, like, I want to give care without being inadequate. I want to give care where it will be appreciated and reciprocated. I want to become more comfortable having conversations about how to make care more reciprocal. I want to have care check-ins. This is so gorgeous. I love all these things. Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. Fuck a burden. Fuck it. Um, right, and I'm seeing people name, I was taught growing up that asking for help meant that I was lazy. There's so many things around like laziness, shame, etc. And I want to pull out, ooh, Emmett, thank you. One thing that came up is how care and policing have been conflated. I served as a university RA, and their care was seen as surveillance. Super important, super important. And I'm loving Sol's, I want people to see me at my maddest and still believe I'm worthy of care and abundant with offerings of care. This is gorgeous. Okay. I'm loving all this. Yes, this is so beautiful. So in the 6 minutes we have left, because I want you guys to do Q&A, I'm gonna shout out a couple things. And I really trust that y'all will take them home to your apartments, your communities, what have you. If you're in, and maybe there can be a repost of the slide slash doc again, but I wanted to shout out a resource that my friend Rebel, who I read the quote from at the beginning, made in his piece Pod Mapping for Mutual Aid, that draws on Mia Mingus's pod mapping document, which is something she created to map out, hey, if you're surviving violence, who are the people you can bring in, who may not be the people who first come to mind who can help you. Rebel took that and was like, hey, I love this so much. I want us to start being creative about where can we get our care needs met. Because so much of the time, sometimes we don't think about it until it's a crisis, and then it can be really hard to figure out where the hell do I get my needs met when I'm in crisis. So Rebel and many other people have emphasized, preparations for what you can't control. Plan this stuff out. What happens when you go crazy? What happens when you get sick? What happens in crisis moments? And also, what's your daily, right? And the people who may show up for you, it may be your spouse, your partner, your mom, your best friend. Also, a lot of the time, those folks who are so close to us, we may not feel comfortable or safe accessing care from them. It may be, yeah, that's my weird cousin I talk to once a year, but they really get this one thing, and they're a real boss when it comes to this one form of access. So when you look at, sorry, if people are able to access, when people are able to access, and I'll just verbally describe it for now, it is slides. Basically, the final exercise I wanted to do was on slides 8 and 9. And it's basically like you draw a bunch of circles, you put one in the middle that's you, and you start just brainstorming. Or I don't remember why, but I know some people are like, that's an ableist word, and I can't think of another word for it right now. But you start thinking creatively, there you go, about where are the places I already get my care needs met? Where are some places or people who we haven't had the conversation yet, but I'm getting a good feeling. Maybe I could reach out to them and be like, hey, how would you feel about me hitting you up when X, Y, and Z happens? And I'll just read from the slides where Rebel said, like, they gave examples where he was like, is it a neighbor who has a generator that'll charge your wheelchair when the electricity's out? Is it somebody who could buy and drop off groceries for you? What about a friend you'd feel comfortable having take care of you when you're sick? Talk to your people and ask what they feel able to provide. Then ask them what they might need from you to be in their pod, or let them know what you can offer, because mutual aid is mutual, right? And they had a whole thing where there's people who are closest to you who are like, yeah, no, those folks were already in my corner. They already show up. I feel great about it. And then there's people a little bit outside who are like, they could maybe be part of my network if you have some builds, if you have some conversations and build relationships. And then on the larger circles on the outside are bigger community groups, networks, organizations that could be resources for you. I feel like when I think about that in my life and my disabilities, my outer circle is things like the one queer domestic violence survivor support line I call when I need to just talk to a stranger who's not in my community who really gets intimate partner violence, which I'm a survivor of, for example. Um, and Saul is saying dream mapping. I'm in love with that concept. A lot of people are saying, I'm loving this. And this is something that can change over time. Like friendships change, we move, our disability needs change, but it can be a place of creativity. And I know sometimes when I've done variations of this workshop, I've had people be like, there's nobody, there's nothing. And I'm like, I hear that. And I want to name that for anyone in this space who might be like, I got nobody, where I'm like, that's real and I've been there. I think that care mapping can also be about what's the shit I do on my own? Is it that walk down the alleyway or the roll down the alleyway? Is it calling Trans Lifeline when they pick up? Is it my spiritual practice, right? Like that kind of stuff. Ooh, and it's dynamic, not static. Oh, I'm loving Patrina saying, as a solo parent and caregiver, I love this healing visioning space. Thank you so much. That means a lot. KP saying something about the circles, reminding me that we can seek comfort and access from the dead, crypt ancestors included. Yeah, I have a really big ancestor altar. I really wish I didn't, but I pray to them every day. Um, yeah, and earlier, I'm jumping back. Somebody was like, "What do you think about spreadsheets?" And I want to name. I actually added a spreadsheet just now, or a kind of spreadsheet, where back in 2019, when the wildfires hit Bay Area, California, and the main utility company was like, we're just going to cut off all the power to the area to stop the fires, right? And so many disabled folks were like, great, that means my insulin goes bad because there's no refrigerator. I can't charge my wheelchair or my ventilator. I'm going to die. Basically, a bunch of disabled folks got together and they were like, they started a thing called Power to Live, where they were like, do you have power where you are? Great, put it in the spreadsheet. Do you have a need? Great, put it in the spreadsheet. And they were a bunch of very exhausted, like 6 to 8 disabled folks in East Oakland. And they were like, we won't be able to save everybody, but we're going to do what we can. And I think that was a beautiful example of spreadsheets. And I think they also ran into some stuff where they were like, we got to make sure this is confidential, right? Because we don't want everyone seeing people's personal business. But if you check it out at the Power to Live link, it was a really beautiful, beautiful initiative. And there's still stuff in there like, here's a way to use 2 clay pots and make dry ice to keep your insulin safe, for example. Um, yeah, Ellen's saying they remember that. It was so amazing. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff. Oh, I'm so sorry, Lindsay. You're right. That is a Google Doc. I can't find it right now. I will go ahead and find that spreadsheet later, and it will be in the Google Doc Live, and I'll update it. Thank you for pointing that out. Um, yeah, and what else do I got? We're at 7, so I'm gonna wrap and go to Q&A. But I want to say that if you look at the spreadsheet, or sorry, not the spreadsheet, the slideshow or the notes, I have a whole list of complicated questions that I think can be useful in thinking about when you're planning care webs. And it's stuff like, what's the goal of the care web? Who's in it? What are their roles? What are best practices? Are there physical tools you need? Do you need to do you need to borrow a wheelchair accessible van? Do you need scent-free cleaner? Do you need money? Um, do you have a plan to check in regularly to make sure that funky dynamics like martyrdom or guilt or difficulty navigating boundaries aren't creeping in? Do you have a plan for checking in around gender dynamics and racial dynamics creeping in? Where it's like, oops, the darker skinned folks are caring for the lighter skinned or white folks. That feels really gross. Ooh, there's gender dynamics in terms of who's giving the care. Maybe more feminine people are being assumed to be the carers. Or there's an assumption of like, oh, you're masked, so that you should be able to carry the heavy thing. Like, let's interrupt that. Um, those are just a few, but like, I'm really into asking questions a lot about this work and keeping asking for them. And the last thing I'll say is plan for conflict. know that even if y'all love each other and things are going really well for a long time, you're gonna get into a fight, you're gonna get mad. I have a beloved now elder, now ancestor who I was on a care team for, where one day he texted and he was like, who's gonna pick up my medical waste bags? And I was just like, babe. Like he did it in a way where I'm like, you need your medical waste bags picked up. And also I was like, brother, it is the beginning of the pandemic. We are all sick. No one can do this right now, you know? And it was one of those access conflict moments where he absolutely needed to have his medical waste bags picked up. And there was a way he was like, you better get over here right now. Where I was like, babe, I can't leave the house. We're on a lockdown. And we had to work it out. And there's a million examples of that. So talk, I know this is a whole lot of like planning, preparation, etc., but think about how you want to fight well, how you want to maybe what you need in conflict, right? Like there's a spreadsheet by the Aorta Collective in all of the links that is their thing where they're like, before you ever get into a fight when you're organizing, talk about what your yes, no's, and maybes are during a fight. Like, don't yell at me, don't text me, do this, not that. How do you do it well? Um, and I'm seeing in chat, it looks like CG shared a resource for queer and trans supports. I'm seeing Lindsay saying often my mom comes over to help, but we end up just chatting the whole time instead. And at some point I realized this is helpful too. At some to also clean my microwave or something I never do, because that and of the two to-do list shit never happens at my house. Yeah, and this is also a dynamic practice where sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm gonna come over and do all this physical labor. And we do end up just shooting the shit for an hour. And then maybe sometimes I'm like, that's what needs to happen. Or the person who needs cure did. And maybe sometimes it's like, hey friend, how about we shoot the shit for 20 minutes and then I do the taking the garbage out and the cleaning your fridge that you really need. How about that? Um, that Google Doc is making us request access. I'm not sure which Google Doc do you mean, Peace. Can you say? Oh, the Queer and Trans Supports resource? Okay, got it. Cool. Okay, we got 11 minutes. Thank you all for hanging in here. Y'all have asked some really great questions, and I'm seeing I haven't had the mental spoons to look at Q&A almost at all, but I'm gonna go over there now and see if there's questions that I could speak to. And if people want to keep asking questions in the Q&A, that's great, and I'll get to them as I can.
I
Okay.
can read them too, Leah.
Oh no, I would actually love to read them out loud. That's okay. Thank you for asking. Um, mhm. So KP is the first one that I visualized where KP says, you started touching on this, but I'm interested to hear more. As state assistance dries up and our institutions collapse, I'm trying to transition from outsourcing care needs to companies and expand the capacity and connection of my care webs without overtaxing the people within them, especially since many are disabled, poor, etc. Can you speak to the tension of outsourcing slash devaluing care work while being in solidarity with gig workers, etc.? Wait, I don't know if I understand the last one, but let me think on this for a second. Shoot. Wait, hold on, KP, I might need your help with that. I was getting the first two sentences, and then that last one, I'm not really understanding the words. And Jamaica, if you could ask the questions in the Q&A, if possible, that would be great. I appreciate it. So KP, I'm gonna actually skip to your next one, which is what care webs can look like within the workplace. Yeah. Okay, so great questions, so many answers. So first of all, I know that at a lot of shit jobs I've worked, people have always had care webs. Like you're always like, you need a break, I'm gonna cover for you. You need to sit down, I'm gonna get a chair. I think it is a lot of daily acts of solidarity and having each other's back. I think it can also mean unionizing. I think it can mean I think it depends whether you're working, doing manual labor or whether you're working at a nonprofit or any other thing. I think that where it's possible to make a little disabled collective to push for stuff, to like push on the goddamn employee manual or the, shitty leave policy or whatever. Or I'm thinking all the years I worked retail where, you weren't allowed to have a chair, and how at one of my retail jobs, we all pushed to be like, no, we're going to have chairs. And we had to be in solidarity because there was like 50, 60-year-olds working at that spot, and I was in my 20s, but I already was in pain. So we were like, no, the boss was like, oh, it doesn't look like you're awake when you're sitting. And we were like, we are not standing for this 8-hour shift, right? As just one example. Um, I think it's like that. And I think any workplace, there's, drama and tensions and crap, but I think you can start with like the everyday ways you go, I'll cover for you when you need to go to the bathroom, all the way up to organizing, and I have in my checkered career being pulled in to do a disability training. I've seen a lot of different kinds of workplaces where disabled folks make, basically raise a ruckus. And I get called in to be the trainer, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to do a workshop and we're good. I've always been like, you've got to change what the policies are and you've got to make those have teeth, right? So TLDR, small acts of solidarity, big acts of pushing back on the human resources department, I think is what I got. Um, yeah, and sorry, I'm going to do the best I can, but I may not get to all questions and I may miss some stuff. Um, I'm seeing CG is asking about being worried about burning out caregivers. Any tips? Yeah, I think that's the check-in thing that I mentioned briefly. And I think it's hard because I know that for me, with people who I've received care from, I'm always like, it's okay, right? You'll tell me when you hit a wall, right? It's okay, right? And I'm lucky that I have friends who I give and receive care with where we can be straight up about practicing. Friend, I wish I could be there, but I'm tapped out right now. You know, but I also have had people who've been like, no, no, I would totally tell you when I'm getting burnt out. And instead they just ghost. And I'm just like, so I'm going to be real. I don't think there's 100% way of preventing it, but I think there are ways that can help, like naming it. Like that it's hard for people to say sometimes, hey, I'm actually hitting my limit, especially if they're like, I don't want to leave you sitting in shit or abandon you when you're in crisis, right? So I think it's things easier said than done. But like naming that it's hard to talk about, first of all, maybe checking it about, can we have a once a month checkout about what's your energy like? Do you feel like you're getting to burnout? Having backup plans, which again, easier said than done, because I know some of us are like, I got 3 people and that's it. But starting to at least build the ecosystem of like, if somebody can even come in when a main caregiver can't, even if it's once in a while where you've got that kind of emergency, that community-based respite of like, I can't do it all. And I think there are people out there who are like, I can't caregive you every week, but I could show up in emergency situations. I could be on call. I could do it once in a while. Um, I was just talking to somebody recently who, and this has happened a lot, who's like, I have one main person I rely on. And I was like, well, I can't do everything they do, but I could come in once a month and do some home care. I just can't do it all the time, but I got an hour. Um, so I think checking in with your caregivers about what's the most accessible way for them to communicate when they're hitting burnout, right? Because for some folks, if you ask them in the moment, they could be really honest and be like, sure, I'm burnt out. For some people, they're just going to freeze up and be polite and be like, no, I'm fine. So sometimes like sending an email or a text or having a scheduled time makes it easier, right? Um, yeah, and then I'm just scrolling. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I'm seeing AMJ is saying, I love pod mapping in theory. I've never been able to do it in practice. 50 million workshops that include it. I feel you. Largely because of what was just discussed in terms of attitudes and realities of care work. I know the answer is develop strong relationships, and what of the limits to that? Autistic social relationships are a whole mess. LOL, I say that lovingly. Pero también, we're also very limited in resources, time, ability. I feel that. It feels to me similarly to, I'm like, I'm always supposed to make my go bag, and yet I stare at the blog post and I never do. Um, I th this may or may not work. Again, throw out anything I say that doesn't work. I think maybe it's not 40 circles on a piece of paper. Maybe it's, what do you already got? And what stuff that's not relationship based, right? Like, what if it is God, spirituality, the walk, the frog in the back garden, the crisis line, the random gaming Discord, you know? I feel like sometimes pod mapping, even if it was never meant to be, there's this thing that creeps in of like, oh, I'm going to have this beautiful, luscious community where all my needs are met. And maybe one thing could be like, actually, all my needs aren't going to get met, and it sucks and it's unfair. But maybe let me see if I can do like a micro version to get it a little met. I guess the kind of like metaphor in my head with the pop with the go bag was like I kept looking at these lists being like I can't buy a battery and a generator and like have $500 in cash and this and that. So my friends were like, we're just gonna put some jerky and some water and like some menstrual pads in a bag, and that is better than nothing. And I was like, honestly, thank you. Because I just was not doing it. And then I was like, okay, I may still die, but like this is better than having an empty bag. I don't know. This is just my thought. And really thinking about like as an autistic, I hear you. I've had to be like, my relationships, I know you know this, they don't look like everyone else's. So when me and a friend just leave each other asynchronous voice memos and that's our social interaction for the month, I'm like, that's my pod. That's part of my pod. You know, it's not a cute dinner party. It's like two weirdos leaving ranting voice memos on Signal. Um, yeah, and I'm seeing anonymous attendee. What do you think about spreadsheets that connect individual requests for mutual aid and individual offers with contact information as a way of minimizing organizer burnout? I think it's great to a point. I think I've seen that done before. And I've seen it also on Instagram where people will just repost stuff a lot and be like, if you got it, give it. Or, I mean, where I live, there's like a giant 1,000-person Signal thread that like is an offshoot of one that was just sharing parties, and that's just people posting whatever. So people all the time will just kind of hit up the whole crowd of randoms being like, do you have this drug? Do you have $20? Do you have this? And it's not perfect, but they get it. I think my thing with the spreadsheets is I worry about like just the safety of having people's like personal information and emails out there. And then you've got randoms coming through offering it. Maybe they're safe, maybe they're not. That's true of everybody, but there's just a lot of vetting or acknowledging, hey, this is completely unvetted. Proceed at your own risk, right? If that makes sense. And 1 minute to go. May we know the resource for intimate partner violence for disabled queer people, please? Okay, so it's not specifically for disabled queer people, but it is for queer and trans folks and kinky and poly. The one I use is the network, also known as La Red. It's out of Boston, but you can call from wherever or text. They have TTY as well. And they've always done right by me when I was leaving an abusive relationship 5 years ago. And I had done a workshop for my local partner abuse resource. I did not feel comfortable calling that number. They really were very helpful. I really like them a lot. And so again, that's the network or La Red. And if you put in the network / La Red intimate partner violence queer, it'll come up. The website will come up. And one latecomer to the resources is Cherry / CK Kaufman's essay "When Care is Scarce," which is actually a really intense and like all the trigger warnings, but really powerful essay from her perspective, being a disabled, needing a lot of care femme who ended up in a violent relationship with someone who was her caregiver, and just what she's struggling with around that. I was really grateful for it. And yeah, and I'm so sorry. I've answered all I can, and I want to respect our time together and our language justice workers who got to go. But I appreciate y'all, and I hope this has been helpful. And I have real faith in all of us, for real. More than most people I have faith for in the world. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, y'all, and thank you, Leah. And for folks who have asked, we will be able to prep the recording and make sure the captions line up and get that sent out after. And if you need to reach us, please do reach out. And I know there's been some contact information shared throughout.
And I'm so sorry. I'm seeing questions I would love to answer around I'm ADHD and I don't even know what I need. Been there. And we're all disabled. Who needs more? I'm gonna try and like write up some email answers and send them to NDS, and maybe they could post it or send it out because those are really good ones. And I'm sorry we didn't get to them. And I appreciate the questions.
I also want to give a giant thank you to our interpreter, our ASL interpreter, Mishan. You are incredible. incredible. I am sweating just like watching you do that. So thank you so much. You are great. And Leah, wow, this was wonderful. Every single person who came to this, you all are incredible. And stay tuned for the next lecture in the series, and we'll send out resources. Y'all have a wonderful night, and watch out for that weather.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you to everyone at New Disabled Staff for having me. I appreciate y'all so much. And big shout out to Michonne and our cart worker on StreamText. Thank you so, so much. And this is where we all go, bye. And it's sad, but bye.
Purple blurry background, white text, missed the CareWeb's webinar? Want to continue to practice, build, and identify care systems? We're so excited to announce our virtual support space Wednesday, August 6, 2025, building on the CareWeb's lecture, a space where disabled folks will process, share, and support each other. Link in bio with a QR code linked underneath. Down center, ASL interpreters and card will be provided. On the right is a black and white image of our guest presenter, Asha Purohit. Asha is a mixed-race Indian white person, leaning slightly forward towards the camera with a closed-lipped but warm smile. Asha is wearing a garnet, black and white blazer-style jacket over a white shirt and garnet pants. Asha's hair is shoulder-length, straight, and half up in a ponytail. They are wearing oval wire-framed glasses, a yellow beehive-inspired earring, and a styled nose ring in one nostril.